Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a great day. Today I get to share with you a Gerda Steiner Designs project using an adorable stamp set called Christmas Kitten. Now this has been in the Gerda Steiner shop for a while, but it's new to me, and I fell in love with these little ornery kittens, and I thought was super cute was that little broken Christmas ornament. It just goes super cute, and then the sentiments are just adorable. We're going to use that today, and I do have the coordinating dies, so we'll be using those as well. So we're going to take 3 of the images from the stamp set, the broken bulb and 2 of the kitties. I'm going to pull out my mini Misty and a piece of Ranger's watercolor cardstock. We're going to ink up our images with some VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I'm using this ink because we're going to use clear embossing powder over it, and so this ink does stay sticky for a little while. After we have our main images stamped, we're going to go back in with the tree branch. I'm going to stamp this a couple times. And then we're also going to stamp the individual Christmas bulb 4 times. We'll take my clear embossing powder and go over all of our images. Today's coloring medium, I'm going to be using my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers. And I like to use watercolor cardstock for this, and also I like to heat emboss with clear embossing powder because it helps contain the ink and it creates less chances for me to go outside the lines. Once I have my panel melted, we're going to jump in with the coloring. Now I'm going to play a little bit of music. I did leave the colors of the Zig markers that I used up in the left hand corner for you guys, but when I'm done coloring I will get you back. Okay, coloring is done. Now I'm going over each of my Christmas bulbs with my Wink of Stella clear shimmer pen. Give them a little bit of sparkle. And then I did decide to go over my little Santa hats. Now this top one, I picked up a little bit of the red ink, and so I turned the bottom portion of my Santa hat into pink. I tried to fix it later on with my white gel pen. But I'll go over my images with the coordinating dies and we'll die cut those out. Now I wanted to add a little bit of texture to my card, so to do this I'm taking my craft pick and I'm punching a hole in the top of the ornament, and then I'm going to take some black twine. I'm going to thread it through the hole that I just punched, and then I'll secure that twine with a piece of foam tape. And I'm going to do that to all of my ornaments that are single. And I left the strings a little bit long because I wasn't sure of the length that I was going to be using. Now I'm taking the same tree branch that the single one, and I'm going to be stamping that a few times for my background panel. Now my background panel size is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and I'm not sure where I wanted my placement yet, but I did want to make sure that I got all the corners. So I'm just stamping them using my Memento ink. Now the cardstock that I'm using is not watercolor cardstock, So I was really careful. I wanted to use my Zig marker to add a little color. This is the olive green. And then I'm going to blend it out a little bit with my water brush. Now, since it's not watercolor cardstock or Nina, it didn't blend out as vibrant as I wanted, but as long as I had color there, I was happy with it. We're just finishing up with our last branch here. And I didn't saturate that ink very much either, too, because I didn't want it to warp my paper. Okay, now we're going to take our images, kind of figure out our placement. We'll add our two little kitties, add our little broken bulb, and then we'll kind of figure out the placement of our bulbs that are hanging off the string. Now the bulbs that are hanging off the string, I'm going to tuck underneath the kitty that's hanging off of the tree branch there. I think when you add twine like this, it just adds detail to your card, and it does add a little bit of texture as well. Now as I got finished, I realized, well, I don't have a place for my sentiment. So here's my solution. I went through my pattern papers and I found one that had grid lines on it, or just lines rather, like notebook paper. I cut out a strip of that and I am going to stamp my sentiment on here. The sentiment here says, "Dear Santa, comma." It says, "I can explain, ... I think that's just the cutest. Once we have that done, I'll trim down my paper, make it a little bit smaller. And then I wanted it to have a little weathered look, so I'm going to go around the edges of this paper with some vintage photo. This is Distress Oxide ink. This is going to just give it a little more weathered look. Now I'm taking my scissors and I'm going to distress the edges of this. We're going to give it an even more weathered look. I love doing this, and if you have a distressor, that it would probably work better than scissors, but love the way it turned out. Next, I'm going to just take that sentiment in my hand and crinkle it up, and then I'll unfold it and then add a little bit more vintage photo. When you do that and go over it again with vintage photo, the crease lines stand out with that color. Now I added foam adhesive behind my sentiment, and here I am adding dimensional adhesive behind my first kitten, and I did already attach the Christmas bulbs. I just used my tape runner to help secure it. I'll remove the backing off of the foam tape of the bulbs, and I'll just stick that down on my panel. Super cute. Now we'll go ahead and add our sentiment. Kind of adjust our placement. Cute. Okay, for the bottom kitty, I already attached the tree branch as if the kitty was standing on it. I'm going to add some foam tape behind our second kitty, and then I do adjust it a little bit. I wasn't sure where to put my little broken bulb, so we're going to move this branch up a little bit higher, and I think that works out better. Now my broken bulb Christmas bulb was blue, and you can see that very bottom ornament was blue. That bothered me. I didn't want the blue next to the blue, so I ended up stamping and then heat embossing another one of the broken bulbs, but this time I colored it in with purple ink, and I think that's going to flow a lot nicer. I'll just use my tape runner to adhere that in the bottom there. And then I did attach this last bulb to this branch. We'll trim off the excess twine. I'm going to actually shorten it just a little bit more. I know I wanted it hanging over my Santa note there. We'll add a couple pieces of foam adhesive and place that towards the top of our panel. Super cute. Love the little ornery kittens. I have quite a few ornery kittens. Okay, I'm going to take this panel. As I was looking at it, one thing that was missing was my little kitty there on the bottom. She wasn't holding nothing, and so I did later on stamp another Christmas bulb and colored it in pink, and I placed that in her hand. Okay, now to give my card a little more texture, I'm taking some Ranger texture paste. This is just a white texture paste, and when it dries, it adds a lot of dimension. I'm going over each one of my little tree branches, just the top edges, as if there's a little layer of snow on there. and we're just adding a little bit of texture paste. That pink on the hat was bothering me, and I almost put texture paste on that, but I didn't want to ruin it. So once we have our texture paste added, I'm going to go over each one of my Christmas bulbs with my glossy accents. Since we have a little sparkle, the glossy accents is going to seal it in there, so it'll be real sparkly and shiny. And we'll do the broken bulb down here. Lovely. And like again, I did stamp one more of the bulbs. It was a pink one, and I added it to that little kitty's hand. I did place this panel on an A2 size card base, which was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And here you can see the pink bulb. But that finishes off my card for today. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. I wish you a fantastic day, and we will see you again soon.